Welcome back to Unlimited Reads. You're with Chris, and thanks for joining me today as I will be bringing to you my spoiler-free review of The Death Watcher by Chris Carter, the 13th book in the Detective Robert Hunter series. And I thought it was great. Every time Chris Carter brings out a new book, he never fails to impress me with what he pulls out of his proverbial hat. So let's start, how I always like to, with what the book is about, taken from the cover. When a routine autopsy on what looked like a straightforward hit-and-run leads the LA Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Carolyn Hove to discover some puzzling inconsistencies, she calls in Detective Robert Hunter of the LAPD Ultra-Violent Crimes Unit. Not only did Dr. Hove discover that the death wasn't caused by a hit-and-run, but she also found indications that the victim had been severely tortured prior to death. What no one realises is that what Dr. Hove has stumbled upon is just the tip of the iceberg, and it will lead Hunter and his partner Carlos Garcia on the trail of a twisted and clever killer who hides in plain sight, a serial killer no one ever knew existed, a killer who has always operated under the radar, expertly disguising every gruesome murder as an accidental death. But with no leads as to why the victim was targeted, the investigation comes to a standstill until another body is discovered with an alternative cause of death. What becomes clear is that this serial killer isn't going to stop unless Hunter and Garcia can get to him. Okay, so the heinous way the crimes are committed in this book are very frightening and raises a burning question. How many times has the killer struck, and how many times has a body simply been dismissed as an accidental death when it comes across a coroner or medical examiner's desk? It kept me guessing all the way through, and this is something that Chris Carter is very, very good at every time I read one of his books. I love the dynamics between Hunter and Garcia in their partnership. They are both very different people, but they blend very well together. While Hunter is pretty reserved and he uses his intellect to solve the crimes, Garcia is a little bit more laid back and puts an element of humour into the books, which is always really enjoyable. And we see one of them in this one in real dire straits, in a life-threatening situation, which provided nail-biting stuff, and you just couldn't wait to get to the end to find out how things resolve. I think this series is more cerebral than action-packed. Sometimes the detectives will get their guns out, but not very often. It's all about the police procedural aspect of the mystery and how it gets solved by using intellect rather than kicking in doors and shooting up people. It's all very intellectual, and I really enjoy that in a thriller because it actually keeps you guessing, and it's very, very smart how Carter intricately weaves his plots and leaves little clues here and there. And one thing I really like is before Chris Carter reveals a certain aspect of the book, he gives a little bit of hint beforehand so that he can sell it to you, if that makes sense, so you don't feel cheated. He doesn't pull any shocks out of the out of things. He actually gives you a little bit of notice, which I think is a very good way of doing things. And of course, Carter's twist at the end of this book is top notch. Really, really good stuff, and it has a really satisfying conclusion as well. The only regret I have is that the book just wasn't long enough. It was over too quick, and that is a good testament to the quality of Chris Carter's writing. I always love each book he brings out, and it's a little bit long between the books. I just want him to write a book every 6 months because I absolutely love this series. If you haven't read the series or heard of it, I would thoroughly recommend it because it is a really good police procedural series where Robert Hunter is a borderline genius, and he could have gone on to do any number of things because you think of the 90s TV show The Pretender, where he could assume all sorts of professions and things like that. Robert Hunter could have done any of those things. He graduated school and college years earlier than everyone else, and he decided, well, it was his vocation really, to become an LAPD detective. It's just a great series. One of the my favourite book in the series and still remains to this day is called An Evil Mind. That one is a real standout for me because Robert Hunter he's reserved and nothing really much phases him, but in this book an individual gets under his skin in a really big way, which was very shocking, and I still think about the book to this day. I did read that one a few years ago, and it was just absolutely brilliant. No book has in this series has come close to that one. Even though I enjoy them all, the An Evil Mind is a standout for me. So there you go, guys. That is it for my spoiler-free review of The Death Watcher. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my videos, please consider subscribing and help me get to the 1,000 subscriber mark and beyond. But until the next video, guys, happy reading.